Hi, my name is Carmen Bowman. Thanks for joining me. I just felt with the holidays upon us and during a pandemic, I just wanted to do my part to help contribute lots of ideas. My hope is that you have so many, you run out of paper. Thank you for joining me for creating joy and festivity for isolated people during the holidays and yes, even during a pandemic. Here we go. You know, we all have to learn how to celebrate our traditions in new ways, and even more so for people living in a nursing home or assisted living. And instead of letting that overwhelm you, I just want to encourage you, you can do it. Even if you pick one or two ideas or talk to each person about one or two ideas from their life, you'll be giving them a great gift. And with all these ideas I want to share with you now, I would encourage you to think individual. I've been having fun saying take every idea with a grain of salt of individualization. So some of these ideas will fit some people and of course not others. You take them and leave them and let yourself expound upon them as ideas come to you. I would also encourage you to also, on the flip side, give people the benefit of the doubt more than we sometimes do. This is particularly people living with dementia. And institutional thinking is that, oh, they have dementia, they can't do that, whatever that is. And instead of doing that sort of like a blanket decision, I just, again, would encourage you to think individual. For instance, here's an example. I myself was thinking that no person, here we go, I'm doing it myself, would probably be able to have a car model with the glue that typically goes with a model. And guess what? I'm wrong. An activity director I know who works with a person living with dementia, living in a memory care assisted living, which means locked, because he spent his whole life making models with the glue, they knew that he was fine with the glue. So there it is, everybody. Don't assume anything and just think individual and try giving people more of the benefit of the doubt. And basically that means experiment, watch, see what happens, and also talk as a team. Here's a key, everyone. Don't make a decision by yourself, maybe when you're wondering and you're not sure about something. Instead, bring it to the whole team so that it's a team decision. And then please be kind to one another and not point the finger if something doesn't go as well as you'd hoped, and to be on top of it and in it together and trying to make it a success for everybody. So with the holidays, and even if Thanksgiving is past, I want to start there. You know, Thanksgiving, or the idea of giving thanks, can be year-round, right? And what I want to pass on here is, if you haven't done this yet, maybe consider passing around thank you cards for people to sign, or passing out cards, thank you cards, you know, one per person to sign for anyone they want to give one to. So you could pass around the card for the CNA on the neighborhood, you know, one of them, or you could hand out thank you cards that residents could perhaps sign and maybe say more than just thank you as much as they want to for individuals. So the idea of giving thanks to one another, especially during a pandemic, you can't go wrong. And that's not bound to any holiday at all, is it? That's something you could do quite frequently. And to be honest, I think I would maybe be passing out thank you cards often. Also, you know, here we go. Let's just begin. And of course, I'll begin with Christmas. And it's going to be a lot of our first Christmas during a pandemic ever, right? So here we go. Bear with me. Maybe a fun thing to do with people might be to encourage them to write their own wish list. You know, we did it as kids with Santa. Maybe it would be fun. Maybe it would be fitting for your community, and maybe not. So ponder the idea of wish list. And the wish list, you could have like a vote. You could ask people what their first, second, and third wishes are. And I just realized this. I have a feeling for the pandemic to stop might be on all of our wish lists, right? And then on the flip side, the serious side of Christmas, maybe someone would enjoy having an Advent calendar. So again, this is very individualized, and I'm trying to start with things that you would need to do now, right away, to be ahead of the game. And there's lots of ways to obtain these items whenever I bring up an item, and there's lots of different ways to get them paid for. So I just want to remind you, it's okay to approach the person, the resident of the nursing home or the assisted living, to ask if they themselves have money they want to spend on whatever it is, right? The Advent calendar. It's okay. Don't feel bad about that. And then if they really don't have money, as we know, people even living with Medicaid sometimes don't spend the money and then need to, right? But then if someone really doesn't have the money, it's okay to reach out to family. You know, families often wonder what to give as gifts for these various holidays. We have Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays, right? And I contend that they appreciate it when you give them ideas. And some people have more family members than others wanting to give gifts, right? And then that frees your budget up a little bit to perhaps only purchase things when the resident themselves cannot, when the family cannot. And then let me just toss in there the idea of donations as well. I heard a really cool idea where a church adopted an assisted living in town. And the assisted living, brilliant life enrichment liaison, she titled herself, gave them the idea to go purchase things, gifts that the residents themselves might want to purchase. I'll show you in a minute how they did this with a certain process. I'll tell you. So residents would have access to gifts for little kids to adult kids, you know, little grandchildren to adult grandchildren. So donations might also be a way to do it. And then I would, you know, up front before the holidays are upon us, start offering the opportunity for people to give gifts. So maybe that means you're just reminding them to go shopping online. Maybe that means you're helping them to shop online. Maybe that means you're going shopping for them. I know a lot of activity directors who are committed to going shopping for the people living where they work, especially those who don't have the family to do it for them. I think that's quite a gift at this point in time. I've heard of volunteers who can't come into the building who are quite willing to help out and maybe go do some shopping. And then maybe even your residents need help finding addresses for people, either within their own materials or maybe through the internet, right? Maybe the idea of encouraging people to give cards within your building to friends who are also living there, or staff members who become friends, and then certainly to their friends and families and through the mail. Someone told me recently, old people love snail mail. Isn't that funny? That is funny. And some of our young people barely know what it is. However, I would tell you, my 15-year-old daughter, she likes snail mail too, you know? I think we all do. And then similar to the thank you card idea, just giving this opportunity to give cards or maybe write letters. You know, you could keep expanding this, help people, either encourage them to do it on their own or help them when you're visiting. What would you like to say to your granddaughter? Or what's something you've learned from your life you'd like to share with your family, or even learn through a pandemic? This is a really great point in time, everyone, to give to one another encouragement, ideas, wisdom, particularly from older people, when wisdom is one thing they do have to give. And so it might go like this, you know, back to the card being passed around. Shh, you know, sign this card and then give it back to me, and then I'll get everybody else to sign it and we'll give it to the administrator or whoever it is. You could do birthday cards like that for staff. You could do birthday cards for residents. It could really be special. And then if you think about the different ways to go shopping, besides what I just mentioned with the going shopping for people or online, what if you created your own store? That's what the assisted living is doing with the help of the church that adopted them, and they're bringing in these gifts. And so residents usually would earn what they call courtyard bucks. The name of the place is the Courtyard. And with the pandemic and not having opportunity to earn things like, you know, by doing trivia or attending this or searching for that, they're just giving X amount of courtyard bucks to come shop with, and then they go shopping for those different items for different family members. Isn't that amazing? And then that just sort of made me think about the very European tradition of the Christmas market. Last year, believe it or not, my family got to see one in Paris. and they're gorgeous and they're special and there's food and there's drink and there's music, right? And maybe you could do something with that, depending on your resources and your creativity and your energy level. Maybe you get volunteers to help you, and maybe you could bring it room to room. Maybe it's the store or the Christmas market room to room. That could be fun. And then don't stop there. As you create the opportunity to give gifts, now you also could create the opportunity to wrap those gifts. This is something that our, dear older folks or anyone living in these settings don't always get to do. So maybe the next, few days or on the cart you probably take around to offer people things. You could start offering wrapping paper and ribbons and scissors and tape and all that good stuff. Again, depending on the person, right? And then how about the traditional Christmas photo in the traditional Christmas letter or Christmas card? So please, run with your own ideas, but maybe you could do a photo shoot. I've heard this idea come up organically with different people that I'm working with. So the activity directors basically are doing the photography. Why not? You can't really bring a photographer in, so go for it. And then build up to it, maybe get times assigned to different people. And Mrs. Smith knows that Friday's her big day, and everybody works up to the hairstyle and to the clothing and to the jewelry and the makeup or the tie for the gentleman or whatever it is for the individual, right? So maybe have fun with photo shoots, getting those into Christmas cards in whatever way you decide to do it. And then getting them out to the family or the friends that the resident wants them to be sent to. Wow. Then, of course, you could also offer the whole idea of making your own Christmas cards. This is going to fit with some people. I just have two fun examples I ran into that have to do with tearing of paper. And that is a lovely imperfect science type of craft that anyone could do, including me. So those are just two simple ideas I happen to run into. As you know, there are many, many more. And then what if someone has no interest in making their own cards? Perhaps offering the boxed Christmas cards as you move room to room that someone could choose from to take a few in order to send them out if they don't have their own or they didn't purchase their own. Along the lines of crafts, I would just toss out the idea to only take the time to do crafts that people would really treasure. There are some crafts that just, they're not what you would put up in your home. So I'm working with professionals, particularly activity directors on this, where I'm trying to make that point, and someone I work with has turned it into always making sure that the craft is elegant. Isn't that nice? I think an elegant craft is more likely to be given a place in a home than the chintzy, cheaper kind of craft, right? And so I just toss that out there. If you're going to spend the time and energy on crafts, maybe really make them count. And these are just two pictures of what I consider elegant crafts that you can kind of see are pretty doable and not very expensive, and they seem to be pretty elegant, I think. You can find many more. Then how about continuing with this idea of opportunities to share of themselves? So beyond gifts, beyond the Christmas card and the photo, back to that idea of a letter. Someone I know is writing love letters. Maybe it's my life story. Maybe it's lessons I've learned from my life I want you all to know and my family. Maybe it's a blessing over your family members. There's so many ideas. And of course, those who can do it on their own, just give them the ideas. But don't stop there. You could be the recorder for those who can't write them out, but you can. And then you've also helped them to write maybe a legacy letter that will be treasured by family and friends. On that note, the idea of a Christmas letter came to mind. So many families do share of themselves and what life brought them in the past year. What if you took that idea into your community and did some sort of Christmas letter? People are more isolated in their rooms from one another. They miss each other. They wonder, my goodness, are my friends still living here to some degree, right? Does that staff member still work here? And we all know that to be communicated with is of the highest honor you can give people that you live and work with. And to not be communicated with is the opposite. People feel dismissed. So I was realizing, everyone, that now of all times, it's time to communicate more with one another. And so the idea of a newsletter, but let's keep parsing that out. A newsletter, we tend to think it's a monthly newsletter. You could do that. You could do a weekly newsletter. You could do a daily newsletter. You could do the daily news. You could do, again, someone I know, an activity director in assisted living, she is actually calling it her love letter to residents. I believe it's once a day, could be once a week. And she's just trying to create joy and meaning and purpose and reminding people they are loved. And she focuses on one thing. She asks people what they want to know about, whether it be, something in the news, to it's someone's Elvis Presley's birthday, to something personal to her or others that work or live there. You can do whatever you want. I would also encourage you that as a staff member, you don't have to do all this. You really don't. You have people sitting in their rooms with a variety of talents and a lot of time on their hands. And as I'm noticing, there's more and more people living in these settings with the laptops and the tablets. And I would lean on, I would encourage, I would ask people who likes to type, who's willing to type, who knows how to do a Word document, who knows how to email it, all that good stuff. And maybe just start with a Christmas letter. And maybe be having the foresight that probably we need to do more than just Christmas, but it would be really special to start there, I believe. And then for some people, having a nativity scene in their room might be very special and important. It would be to me. And I happen to personally collect one-piece nativity scenes, which I realize might be very fitting for a small room in a nursing home or assisted living. Although, the other person, as we think of individuals, might love having a bigger nativity scene. And as people have room and as their personality and their preferences, dictate, maybe you can help make that happen, whatever it is. And then we have the whole idea of stockings. Maybe you purchase them and everyone gets one. Maybe you poke a few nails in the wall. It's okay, everybody. Work with your maintenance team. Maybe they could help. Could something be done that's very special? Could a mock fireplace somehow be made? I just thought of that. Some sort of craft that maybe the men do, and every room gets one, and then every room gets the 1 or 2 stockings, depending on who lives there, and maybe others make the stockings, and maybe the names actually get put on the stockings, and then maybe, maybe your budget or a donation helps pay for things to go in the stockings. It could be a whole production, couldn't it? And it could be a lot of meaning and purpose for certain people at this time of year. Don't forget these little mini Christmas trees. My goodness, they come in all sorts of styles. I've noticed even in my own home, I have numerous little mini Christmas trees. And so be aware of that. What a great thing to have, again, in a small space in some of these settings. Make sure everyone has a little Christmas tree who wants one. And then if you have a tree, maybe the idea of making some little ornaments, sort of like mini-sized ornaments, might be fitting for some people. And also, maybe just having ornaments to pick from would be another way to gift people. And notice, speaking of gifts, the idea of just maybe wrapping little boxes or little pieces of wood for the idea of a craft of little presents to go under the little Christmas tree. Just a plug for beautiful Christmas decor, everyone. Again, you don't want the chintzy, cheap stuff that we tend to buy in the institution. I'm sorry, I'm guilty. If you just kind of think of, you and I don't hang things from the ceiling tiles in our house. And if that's sort of the way decor goes for the different seasons and holidays, you just might want to rethink it as you can. And think of beautiful, normal Christmas decor that you might have in your home and anyone might love having in their home. by the way, pine cones are a pretty, inexpensive, beautiful way to have decor. Again, depending on the person and what you feel is appropriate. I even got to realizing, as people are eating in their rooms with the pandemic, maybe having more Christmas even paperware, just napkins even, They're so pretty and they're so festive. And I myself just love getting festive napkins. They themselves are sort of like a piece of decor. You could do that. And the same with candy canes. I decorate with candy canes. I don't eat them, but they're just so pretty. And there's a big meaning behind them. I don't know if you know it. And they can be, they can be hung on different things. I've hung them on other pieces of decor in my home. You can hang them on the Christmas trees. You could get mini candy canes to hang on the mini Christmas trees. Then some people might enjoy stirring the hot chocolate or a drink, a mocha coffee with the candy cane. And of course, some people might very well enjoy eating them. And then let's not forget one of everyone's favorite thing about the colder Christmas season, colder in most parts of the world, your favorite warm beverage, right? There is something special about each person's favorite warm beverage, whether it's the hot chocolate, the apple cider, the wassail, the mocha coffee, the different teas, different coffees, etc., etc. And I just got to put in a plug for eggnog. How about one special event might be sharing eggnog with everybody one day. Don't forget eggnog. I've heard dietitians remind us it's just a staple of the season. It really is. And even if you're allergic to eggs like I am, even just a little sip is really special. So have fun with that. Work as a team. Your dining team could take the lead on this, and it could be very special to people. Of course, then that leads us to talk about your favorite Christmas treats and candies and fudge and cookies. Oh my goodness, right? So what can you do about that? Maybe you're in a position to do the baking, actually, even during a pandemic. Maybe you could encourage family members to bring the cookies, the favorites, to the person in a sealed, container. It just can't be forgotten, right? And then I don't want to miss anyone. Of course, whatever someone enjoys doing to celebrate Hanukkah, I actually found battery-operated Hanukkah lights, and that could be a real big blessing at this point in time for someone to be able to have that in their room. And then keep expounding on the music and singing the songs and using and playing with the dreidel and maybe even some of the treats like the latkes, if you can. And there is a website, they let me use this picture, that sells these battery-operated menorah lights. And for someone who celebrates Kwanzaa, the same stuff, whatever the rituals and the music and the singing and the food is, please help it to happen for them. And speaking of those electric, or battery, I should say, right? Battery-operated candles. Don't you wish you could have the real thing, the real candles? And of course we can't. So because we can't, I've realized these little battery-operated candles have become just such a blessing, right? I would suggest go get a boatload of them. Give them out by handfuls. Let people experience the joy of candlelight as best as we can give them at this season, particularly when it gets dark in the room. And really, even someone with dementia, it gives them, it's an item in the room that actually gives them something to engage with. You just naturally engage with a little candle that you find an on-off switch. You do, and it's really quite special, I think. We couldn't talk about Christmas or any of these holidays without music, right? So one whole aspect of what you give to people could just be making sure they are hearing their Christmas music. That could just be your focus for room visits, your focus for one-to-ones, your encouragement to families to bring or send the CDs, to make sure someone has a radio, to make sure someone has the iPod, filled with their music and now a Christmas playlist, or know how to find it on Pandora, know how to find it on their phone. Just I would say, make sure the Christmas music is happening for people. Wouldn't you agree? It's one of the most special parts of the season. And on that note, I do have a little bit of music to share with you. I've been finding myself encouraging professionals to remember the idea of a music box. Again, this is an item that simply a person does engage with naturally. You know, I think perhaps even with the dementia, you find such a piece and maybe you handle it and you touch it and you discover there's a key at the bottom and you turn it. And don't forget, music boxes can be for men as well as women. Sometimes I think they're just meant for women, but that certainly is not the case, as long as it's the right music, right? And along that idea, I next thought of a snow globe for the season, and a friend of mine actually has a snow globe that also is a music box. How fitting is that? So I'll play you a real quick clip here. Snow globes, music boxes, sometimes you get both. You get the idea. Let's talk more about lights. Oh, aren't lights, besides candles, lights in general are such a special part of the season. So what can you do about lights for the people living in their rooms? Perhaps lights around the window, lights somewhere, the little battery operated lights. Maybe families could help decorate lights outside. I would just caution you, make sure the person really can see the lights. Sometimes it's on the edge of a window and you don't see it looking out. Maybe in a tree, maybe wrapped around the bird feeder. Doesn't matter, but help them to see lights outside and maybe have lights in their room. How about an amaryllis plant? That is a very seasonal, beautiful thing. Again, maybe not everyone wants one, but what a beautiful living thing to be in your room and to be watching and caring for. I've heard of homes that just gave every single resident an amaryllis plant to watch grow during the season. I think that is brilliant. The same could be said of a Christmas cactus, perhaps, depending on the person. And just those are two very special plants for the season that maybe you could look into. And then, does the person celebrate Christmas Eve? And if so, help them to plan what they're going to do for Christmas Eve, what you are going to have offered on Christmas Eve. But the key here is planning, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And then if they're going to plan Christmas Eve, how about planning ahead of time how Christmas Day will go? Some families did open gifts only on Christmas Day, right? My family opened gifts on Christmas Eve. Don't ask me why, but every family does things different. So get the person planning. And then I want to cover some gifts to consider during this pandemic. What if the gifts were very focused on the fact that people are stuck in their rooms, very lonely, very bored? And so I first want to put out the idea of a magazine subscription. I've just realized people of all ages flip through magazines, right? Look at my little 2-year-old friend Drake. I just couldn't believe how he handled the magazine like an adult. And even people with dementia, they know what to do with a magazine. And for a few minutes, it's like you don't have dementia, you know what I mean? It's just so normal. And to be honest, I encourage to think through things that are normal for people versus the things that are not normal, like the toys that are meant for children. I just encourage you to keep adding to the list things that are adult and normal. And in a subscription to a magazine is mail. It's the snail mail. It comes monthly. You're actually getting mail monthly. You're getting a gift along the idea of your interests. Maybe even you could encourage people to get more than one magazine subscription. And we all remember the old, I guess, AOL clip, "You've got mail." We all love that. And then along those lines, maybe a newspaper subscription to somebody, maybe even someone who didn't traditionally read it, to be honest. You know, people have so much time on their hands. It might be time to try something new as well. I've also learned that when a newspaper subscription is purchased, like maybe by your organization itself, that it tends to come with a passcode for the newspaper online. What a wonderful thing. So more than one person could be reading the newspaper. And then I also have tended to just raise the idea of a simple deck of cards. A lot of older people actually know what to do with a deck of cards. Perhaps our younger people won't as much, but that's okay. And even again with the dementia, so many things can be done with a deck of cards. It doesn't matter. They're inexpensive. If they get dirty or lost or ripped up, you know, to offer another deck is not that difficult. And now you've got something to do, whether it's shuffling or sorting or building a house of cards, or maybe being able to play solitaire. Perhaps this creates meaningful engagement for people. And then another big win, I think, is just a big, beautiful photo book. And so I'm not going to say a children's picture book, because I don't want anyone to get the idea of a children's book, but the idea of a book with lots of pictures. What an easy thing to take in and enjoy. So now we're talking like a book about the Rocky Mountains or the Florida beaches. And a lot of times when we go traveling, all the tourist stores have what you might call a destination book. Here's one of mine on Washington, D.C. We always want to take a little bit back with us, right? And guess where all these books end up, everyone? At the thrift store. So you could probably get a whole bunch there. And I recommend you go buy them all up and pass them out, because this could very potentially be something very meaningful to do. And again, it can be either places you've already been, like you were born in Kansas, go get them the Kansas book, right? Or places you've never been. And wow, people could be very, you know, my goal isn't busy work, but they could be very busy looking at a lot of places maybe that they might never get to. That's how I feel. I bought a book about Israel. I realized I probably will never see it. And so I got the book and I looked at every picture and I kind of feel in a tiny way like I've been there. It's really neat. And now let's talk about calendars. What a lovely gift idea at this time of year. Oh, calendars are such a big deal. I was actually in a mall, yes, a real mall still, where a store here says calendars, games, and toys. So a third of the store is calendars, everyone. And just to start with there, you can see that there are like several racks of just art calendars. I didn't even have time to go take a photo of all the many different themes to calendars. And something I've realized is we probably do need more calendars around the nursing home and the assisted living. And now we're talking about in people's rooms. You know, if the only calendar someone has is the activity calendar, if you think about it, that doesn't really reflect who the person is. And so with their own calendar, now they have the beauty of whatever, or the jokes or whatever, the sports theme, whatever it is, it's something that would be reflective of them. You can also help someone be more oriented, at least they can see what month it is. And you can also help them figure out what day it is. My grandma used to put a big X through yesterday. You could help people do that so they know what day it is. And there's something in the world of psychology called a future self. And sadly, when people are older and living in an institution, they often don't have a future self. They don't really know, like you and I do, what you're going to do tomorrow and what you're going to do on the weekend and what you're going to do next week and next month and like hopefully when next vacation's coming, right? Or guests are coming. And so just by virtue of giving people a calendar, maybe you can help them to have a future self. And then remember what I said about planning Christmas Eve, planning Christmas Day. And with that, how about planning what you're going to do for New Year's Eve and starting to plan what you might do for the new year. And so those are some ideas for celebrating the holidays during a pandemic. And to close, I want to share some resources. If you're new to the idea of culture change, go to the Pioneer Network. They too will show you if your state has a culture change coalition. Some do. The Eden Alternative, the Greenhouse Project, and Action Pact are some places to go for more resources. And some that I've been involved with, particularly with Action Pact, are the following. Vibrant Living is a big, beautiful coffee table book with big, beautiful photos of real people doing real things. And on every page, we share with you inspirations to energize daily life. And we actually wrote it to the people living in the nursing home or the assisted living. And it also comes with learning circle questions to help you dig a little deeper as a community. I highly recommend learning circles. And also audits, believe it or not. How many of you give an audit to a family member or a resident? That is very proactive. So every time I share a resource, I'd like to try to share a tip as well. Living Life to the Fullest, this book really digs into getting to know someone better. So many of our processes don't help us get to know someone deeply. And so this is just a workbook. It's thin, it's a resource. You know, go after psychosocial needs and ethnic culture and find out what highest practicable level of well-being is, which is required by regulation. We give you tools how to do it. Go after people's interests. You don't have to focus on problems. And then I got tired, to be honest, of looking for a good activity assessment. And so I tried to, you know, create one and offer something to the field. And it is long, but I'll tell you why. It's got a lot of prompts. And so when you ask someone, what cards, you know, did you ever play cards? And they say, yes, let's say. What did you play? Oh, I played rummy. We tend to move on. And guess what? As you can imagine, there's oodles of card games. And if you run through more than the one they offer, you will find out more. They're going to say things like, oh yeah, I did play Kings in the Corner with my grandpa. I forgot about that. Or, no, I've never heard of whatever, Pokino. I'd love to learn, right? So either ones I used to play that I forgot, or ones I've heard of that I'd love to learn, or never heard of and would love to learn. So, you know, always go with past, but also present and things maybe someone's never even done. Then a workbook called Regulatory Support for Culture Change. Here's a big tip. Did you know most regs, I should say all regs, support the ideas of culture change, even though sometimes you think they don't. We spell out how they do. Changing the culture of care planning. We teach you how to do eye care planning, how to do narrative care planning, which is not the 3 columns. It reads more like a story, which helps you really get to know someone better, to be honest, and as a person. Get to know people as a person, right? Not as a task. And we show you how the regulations support these ideas, and we give you a whole set of policies, procedures, and sample care plans. And it comes with a visual care plan, which is set to music and very meaningful, so much so it might make you cry. So check that out. Soften the Assessment Process is also a workbook, but it also comes with a training DVD for all disciplines. And we try to recognize that in the first week of someone's new life in the nursing home or assisted living, it's just full of a lot of assessments. So we're saying let's soften that institutional assessment process, and we give you ideas along these ideas. We use the word soften as a mnemonic device. Support simple pleasures. Please do that. Find out what people's simple pleasures are and a way to support them. Do you love Coke or do you love Pepsi? That used to be a thing, right? And now, you know, maybe people don't drink those as much. Do you like stevia or real sugar? You know, it's fun to find out. Offer options, choice, foster friendships. We need that. Tie into the tasks we have to do, but they don't have to be the focus. Ideas for equalizing. We're not staff and residents, we're all people. And similarly, ideas on just how to normalize instead of be institutionalized. Quality of life, the differences between deficient practice, common practice, and culture change practice. I'll tell you the big win of this is, sadly, common practice around the country is that you will see people wearing bibs in a nursing home in particularly. That's common practice, but it doesn't mean it has to be, it's not the best practice. So we show you how, through the culture change movement, how cultures actually were able to move from the bib, and it's still a bib even if you call it a clothing protector, right, to what is more normal, typically linen napkins. And then, I don't know if you're still using alarms. A lot of homes have finally stopped using alarms, but this book shows how alarms are really a deficient practice, and moving forward, eliminating alarms, and the bigger deal, preventing falls by engaging with life. I just love those pictures of that's all real life happening right there. And here's a free resource. It's a paper called The Power of Language to Create Culture. And so if language interests you, I'm glad to offer something that's free. If you would like a shorter version, a handout, email me, I'll send it to you. There is power in language, everybody. And every time you keep using institutional language, like, you know, we have 120 beds in this facility and we have patients who live on units who need toileting. Oh my gosh, it makes me sad. But if you talk about the people who live in this home and they live on neighborhoods and we have a new neighbor moving in tomorrow instead of the new admit, it creates a whole different culture. If I can be helpful to you, I do training and teaching and workshops and webinars. I'm really interested in team coaching because it's your team that has all the power to create a culture. Also, if you don't know much about culture change and you want to learn, get a mentor. I'd be honored to mentor you. Become a culture change advocate and even consider calling yourself that. That's what I am. How about you? If you're part of an activity team or social service team, I would encourage you to become one team. And probably what you really are is quality of life team. And quality of life is not getting the attention that it could and it should, according to REG. Also, if you know of a new activity director or one that's not yet qualified according to the federal regs, or even assisted living regs that are now requiring some education, I'd love to help. I also have a lot of pandemic related topics if you want more. There's a lot out there. It doesn't just have to be from me. Grow yourself, grow your team. I offer a lot of compliance and culture change topics, as you can see there. And I'm now on Patreon, as you know. These are my other videos about proactive ideas for preventing falls, like anticipating people's needs, proactively checking in with residents. That's a whole other practice. Meaningful engagement actually has the potential to prevent falls, mobility. And then if you still are using alarms, the harms of alarms and how they can be deficient practice. And last but not least at the moment, meaningfully engage individuals in their rooms, especially those living with dementia and through a pandemic. And there's a whole bunch more ideas. I've kept them separate pretty much. So you would get a lot more ideas for gifts from that training video as well. And coming soon, I'm working on a podcast along these lines as well. If you'd like to check this out on Facebook, I have the Culture Change Minute. And yes, it is 60 seconds of inspiration for either you as an individual or to share with your team. So last but not least, to close, keep creating home, true home, everyone, not home-like, for the people, not the patients, not even the residents. They're people first who actually live there. They live there, you only work there. And it can't just be about care, everyone. We have to talk more about living and life and not just about the care they receive. And may I say, God bless you for doing it. Thank you.